What's up, guys? Thank you again for joining us today in another video of Beyond the Pieces, where we're going to talk about personal growth and self development. And you already know we're breaking it down piece by piece. If you like the video, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We really would like to see some more comments. We want to hear what you guys think, any thoughts, questions, concerns. Even if you don't agree with us, we want to hear what you have to say. So with that, let's get straight into the video. Just getting straight into it. Why do you feel that this topic is kind of a touchy subject?
I think that when you get into spirituality or religion, you get into what people believe. And anytime you get into what I believe and you tell me that I'm wrong about it, I'm offended. And if I can't defend what I believe for whatever reason, whether it's right or wrong, if I cannot defend it, now I feel intellectually inferior to you. And so now I don't care anymore about being right or wrong, right? I'd rather fight you on this. I'd rather hate you on this, right? Because now you're threatening my belief. You're threatening my reality, everything about this world that I understand, right?
Mm,
And I may not be able to handle that um at that particular time in the way that you're telling me. I think
okay.
that's why it's such a fragile topic to talk about. What about you? Like, why do you think it is so fragile?
I mean, you could align it with what you just said. I feel it really just comes down to people. I think it stems around the afterlife. Um, and I think it stems about around purpose. So certain religions, certain people believe that whatever they have, whatever they practice is the right way. So if they're and they don't believe that there could be multiple right ways. Um, that being said, some of us are a little bit more aggressive to when we hear something that is opposed to what we believe in. And then it's a fear of judgment. It's like, okay, well, you judge me because I don't believe in what you believe. Um, and so it gets even deeper to a sense of belonging, you know? I think we all have this desire to belong to something or to belong somewhere. And I mean, that it comes with that as well. So, I mean, there's going to be judgment. There's going to be a sense of, okay, well, if you're not with us, you're with them. Um,
You
and
want to feel
then,
like you're part of a group. And
yeah,
when you show me that you don't believe the same thing I believe, now I feel like we're not part of the same group.
we're not on
And
the same team.
we're not on the same team. And if you a lot of people have the mentality that if you're not with me, you against me. So
Right.
now that you told me you don't believe what I believe, you're not on my team. So if you're not with me, you have to be against me. And
Yeah.
that's not necessarily the case.
Mm.
We might not even be playing the same sport. So of course we're going to be on different teams, right? Um that
It's a, go ahead.
that's a human thing. I think that because that's the whole reason we started this channel is because humans are meant to be connected, and everybody is looking for self-growth, personal development in some shape, form, or fashion. And this channel not only helps them to see, look, this is where we failed, this is what we did, this is what we went through, to show that you're not the only one. We're together, we are a team. We do face some of the same challenges.
Being then, and my question is, it's a question that I would want to answer myself. But the question I have for you then is, I mean, you have, I mean, and for this part, make this part a short answer, and then I want you to elaborate once I ask the follow up. Okay.
Okay.
Um, so the first part of the question is, what is your faith? What do you believe in?
So technically my faith would be Christianity.
Okay.
Because I do believe in the Bible.
Okay.
I will admit I have not read it cover to cover. But that
Okay.
would be my belief.
Gotcha. And then, so being that you are a Christian, then what is your stance then when you're having a conversation with somebody who doesn't believe what you believe in?
I
How do you well, let's say start with this. How do you open that conversation?
I love it. I love it.
Mm,
Usually I don't have to force the conversation.
yeah.
Um, but in the event that I do decide to force the conversation, I won't bring up my religion or my belief, right? I'll bring up um I'll just start asking questions about what they believe because I already know what I believe and I'm firm in my belief. So I understand that we may go back and forth all day till you purple in the face. That will not change what I believe until I decide that what I believe wants to change. Right.
Okay.
So typically, I'll just start asking questions like, so do you believe in God? I didn't ask you what God, or if you believe in more than one. I haven't asked any of those questions. Just yes or no, do you believe in God? If you say yes, then I know you can be of a variety of beliefs. If you say no, I understand you're atheist, right?
Yeah.
So now, if you say, let's just say you say no, you don't believe in God, and I ask you, well, where do you think the universe came from? And you go Big Bang Theory, and then I would just continue to ask you questions about what you believe. Like, how do you think it all started? What do you think happens after we die? Things of that nature. Because based on my religion, I would have answers for those questions. But I would like to know, do you? Have you ever been in a situation like that? Anybody ever asked you something like that based on your religion or your beliefs? And if how did you deal with it? Or what questions did you ask? Or what questions did you ask them? I mean, what questions did you allow them to ask you, or what questions did you ask them?
Uh, one, I try to be mindful before the conversation starts that if I'm going to enter this conversation, enter it with an open mind. Now, an open mind for me, especially as a Christian, I can have an open mind to a certain extent. I'm not trying to take on what you believe as my own. Not open in that sense, but as open as in you hold your truth. you know? So that's what you believe. I'm okay with that you believe in what you believe. And we're gonna be able to leave this conversation still friends. We're not gonna walk away from each other like, well, he said this to me. He said it wasn't an argument. What it was a conversation, you know? And there's going to be disagreements, obviously. But what I'm not going to start doing is start bickering back and forth, this and that. This is what it is, because just as much as I'm not willing to move from my faith, I would expect that from you, you know? So, yeah, so I try to go into it with an open mind. I'm willing to answer a really, to be honest, anything and everything. And when I say the questions that I'm willing to answer, it's not the fact that I have an answer. The answer could literally be, I don't know. And I think a lot of conversations, especially when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to religion, that a lot of people aren't willing to say or, admit is that they don't know. You could read the Bible front cover to cover, and there's still going to be more questions. That's the whole thing, is that you're supposed to continuously be seeking the kingdom, continuously be seeking God. And not all of us have the knowledge of a pastor. So when I'm having a conversation with someone, it's knowing where my mind is at, knowing where my intelligence level is at when it comes to my faith, to what's in the Bible. Um, but I believe that you need to be willing to answer everything. If you, because of how sensitive the topic is, I believe you dodge much more openings to be offensive or to offend somebody if you are being completely honest and open about the conversation. Because I think it's much harder when you're trying to pull punches about what you believe on something, and then all people can see is the way you look at them. Or like when they say something like, "Oh, I believe that," or "I believe in this," and then you raise your eyebrow or you kind of look at them funny, right? It's not, okay, well, why are you looking at me funny? What about that made you question? So it's like this. If you're going to have a conversation about this, be completely open and honest. You can maintain firm to your foundation, firm to your religion, or firm to whatever you believe in, but realize that there are other thoughts out there, there are other beliefs out there, and it's not especially if you're a Christian, you're not in the position to be the judge. That's the whole point of it, is that you are not the judge. You follow the judge, but you are not the judge yourself. So you don't have any right to create any type of thought or whatever on anybody else. Um, but what I will say is hard is when, I could be biased, and I definitely am biased because I have my own belief system. But when talking to someone, your idea is, if you truly care, it's kind of like, what what potential does this conversation have in changing the way that they think? So, yeah, that's kind of my outlook
I'll
on that
add
emotion.
too. Whenever I have those conversations, I don't I don't ever talk to them as if I have all the answers because I don't. But I
Yep.
also think back to a time I remember when I was in their shoes. I remember when I didn't believe, like, I didn't always believe. So I'm not going to stand before you today and act like, oh no, since the moment I step my first step, I always, no, 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 no. I strayed. I did, but I found my way back.
How
So
so? So then we get I know we're going kind of like on a, not a different route, but you had just said that you didn't always believe. When did you believe? What, as a matter of fact, what's your testimony, if you're willing to share?
so more or less church, more church than no church. From grade school to high school, but then I go off to college and you're used to going to your church, right? As a young adult, you're used to going to your church, but I went off to school. So for me it was, I didn't really like the churches. I didn't really want to, it was uncomfortable for me to get out there. So I didn't. And that led to me not going to church for a long time. Um, and it led to me having a lot more questions. It led me to taking more of a spiritual walk for quite some time and learning about that and kind of what that is in that space. And then um, eventually walking back to the Bible and believing the Bible itself. So I always believed in God, but I didn't always believe in the Bible. So even when I went on my spirituality walk, it was looking for God, but thinking that the Bible was not the way to find him. So,
What, but what caused you to go on your spiritual walk?
so one, not going to church, I'm looking for a way to connect because it's something about going to church. There's a different feel when the church is right. Um, so not having that feeling anymore felt weird, and so it was like I was looking for that particular feeling. And
The feeling that you get when you go to church.
correct, like that different or like that soothing. It's somewhat like,
Clarity.
huh?
Kind of like a feeling of clarity
Not
that you get.
clarity, but
Mm.
peace.
Okay,
So
there we go.
like
I got you.
like
I'm
you
tracking.
don't feel you don't feel like there's going to be a mass shooting at a church, no matter how big the event is.
Mm.
There's a different type of peace when you walk in, and
Peace,
so
safety. Mhm.
that's what I was looking for, was that, like, that feeling where you don't just say it, you don't just like do a meditation, but actually having that feeling of peace I was looking for. And so I went looking for it in spirituality through numerology, through chakras, through um dreams, right? All these different things. I was experimenting with stones. I was experimenting, trying to find that feeling, not knowing at the time that that feeling is peace. And then I get really upset one day, and I understand all these things, astrology, numerology, blah blah blah, but I still don't understand how to talk to God. Like I wasn't sure I was receiving messages anymore. So at that point, that's when I felt like this spirituality thing can't be working for me either. So then it was back to basics, because I remember too at the time what made me push away the Bible was when I was still going to church, the people were treating me really differently. So they weren't always consistent with the way they were treating me. And it led me to be like, well, God, if these your people, like I don't want nothing to do with them, you know. And
How were they? In what ways? Like, what ways do you feel like you were being treated? What
uh
ways were they treated?
like overlooked. And I don't mean overlooked in a way that spotlight has to be on me, but
Yeah,
I noticed that during times of fellowship, you and I could be sitting side by side, and they'd shake your hand, they'd speak to you, tell you good morning, but it'd be as if I was non-existent. And when I,
kind of like they were going through the motions.
not even like they were going through the motions, but like as if they were just neglecting me, because they could see the person to my left and the person to my right, but for some reason it was like they couldn't see me, even if I would be like, hey, good morning, hey, how you? And it's, how many times do I do that before? I don't want to be around these people.
That's interesting,
And
man.
so for me, I was looking at it as, well, this is a church. God, if these your people, I don't want nothing to do with them. And you know this, and you know my heart. So why would these be your people? I don't get it. And so I started looking for answers, and led me on my spiritual walk. And then at the end of it, still looking for answers. And so I decided I was gonna go back and I was gonna start reading the Bible, because I wanted to know if my problem was with God or was it with the people. Because I can't be mad at God for what the people doing. You know what I'm saying? And that's when I was, okay, well, let me find this for myself. And that's what led me to read, and that's what led me to, oh, a lot of these pastors are preaching the same sermons from the same scriptures, because they don't know any other, like they don't know any other part of the Bible, right? And then you getting into actually word study, like what does this word mean? What does that word mean? It led to a lot more understanding, and it led me to understand that I wasn't mad at God. I was mad at the people, but I was taking it out on God. And for me, it was, oh, okay, so this Bible is principles, and it's wisdom. It's not attendance records, right? Oh, I went to church 52 times this year. It's not that at all. It's totally different. And anybody who is thinking about China, I encourage you to. So, but that was my testimony. I understand that you have been through a lot as well. Do you have a testimony about your spiritual or religious journey?
Yeah. Uh, And first, I really, I mean, I want to say thank you, man, because you you were vulnerable about, kind of what your process and everything, and I know that and I think we should definitely continue to talk about it soon. I know that you mentioned that you experimented with like different spiritual practices such as the stones and chakras and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then now you're a Christian. So yeah, I'm interested in see what that process was. Um, but yeah, man, I would definitely I my testimony. I was raised God fearing, but I was not raised in the church. I've been to church as a younger, person, as a kid. My mom was the kind of uh, what do they call it,
The
the leader
deaconess.
when it came to that. She was the spiritual leader in our family,
Ah,
100%.
gotcha.
So when it came to going to church, it was usually her idea, um, and we would go. But I've been to multiple churches as a kid. We never really had one solid church that was ours, and there was a reason for that. And the reason was certain churches, um, their practices were interesting, and also what they believed in was also interesting. But not just that it was interesting; it was pretty judgmental, in a way where it was you needed to abide to certain things that for specific for the church that weren't, but they would almost like read it as law, as if it was Bible, as if it was biblical.
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, that so because of that, it was hard for us to find a church. Um, but my mom always made sure to pray for me. She always made sure to show, I mean, for me to pray with her, to show me, to always tell me through thick and thin, that there was a higher power, that God was watching me, God was keeping me safe, He was protecting me. Um, so I grew up God fearing, but I also still did have a testimony. For me, it was when I was in school. I had I believe I mentioned it in a couple other videos where the group that I was hanging out with, a couple of us started dropping out of school. We weren't necessarily doing what we were supposed to be doing. And I started feeling like I was drowning myself in a way that I felt that I was going to fall into this pit of failure practically. And so I started performing pretty subpar in different avenues. I started not running that great on the track, and then even in the classroom, I was almost failing certain classes. I barely had a GPA that was making me eligible to even run in college. Um, and I remember I had just failed an exam in chemistry. And when I mean I failed. Like that, it was an F. Like it could have been an F minus if there was a thing, you know. So, um, yeah, I had failed an exam, and this came after you know, I was just going through it, man. I was really just going through it, and this was kind of like the cherry on top that I needed to explode. So I failed the exam. I even took it after hours, so I was the only one there. Everyone had already left. I think it was some type of break. Everyone had already left for school. I failed the exam, getting extra time and kind of working with the teacher. And I remember I brought the exam outside, and I sat down on the front step of the building, and I was crying, and it was interesting because I'm sitting there crying, and then I remember this lady. I say lady, but it was a girl that went to the school. She walked up and she saw me and she kept looking at, and you know, it kind of like you're minding your own business, and you could tell someone's trying to like see what you're doing. Like she kept on trying to like look under what I was doing. So I was kind of hunched over, and I'm trying to like, I'm kind of looking like, what the heck is she doing? Like, leave me alone. This has nothing to do with you. And she asked me, she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, and I wiped my face. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." And I got up and I walked away because I was like, "Dude, how you going?" First of all, why are you here? Okay, everyone's home. Go home. Like, you know what I mean? And I got up and I walked away. Now, when I walked away, I walked over to a bench and I sat again because I needed to finish crying. You feel me? Like I wasn't done, man. Because I was like, man, I'm gonna flunk out of school. I'm not gonna be able to run track. My parents are gonna, you know, be disappointed in me. I'm gonna have to get this, you know, job that I'm gonna be mad that I have because I could have been somewhere else, you know. Um, and so I sat down at the bench to, you know, kind of just finish that feeling of sorrow that I was going in or that I was feeling. And a random individual walked by, and same thing, except this person was a little bit older. He looked like he probably could have been a professor at the time. So I thought he was like maybe someone that worked there. But he was walking around the bench, and the bench was nowhere really near any important buildings. But he walked around me, and you can clearly see, like by my body language, I'm not approachable. You know, I'm not giving any signs of come talk to me, right? This guy, he walks up to me and he goes, "Hey, do you know where this building is?" And I'm just like, I'm at that point, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm going through all these different emotions, but I'm really kind of like, why are you talking? Like, what is going on? Like, do people not understand body language anymore? Like, you know what I mean? So, and mind you, I'm only doing it because I'm alone. I'm not trying to get attention. You feel me? Like, I'm
Right.
just, he came out of nowhere. I promise you that was the craziest thing. And he was like, "Yeah, do you know where this building is?" And I told him, "Yeah, I don't." And I think I even lied to him. I was like, "I don't know, man," because I was just trying to get him to go away. I was like, "Yeah, I don't know, man." And then he asked me. He was like, and he looks at me, and he just like stares at me for like 3 seconds, and then he's like, "Can I pray for you?" And the feeling that I got from that, man, was it reminded me of when I would go through tough times as a child, whether it was with school, whether it was with like my life at home, and whatever it was. It reminded me of times where my mom would ask to pray for me, and for those of us who don't know the feeling of that, of like the feeling that I get when my mom prays for me is a feeling of like the like you mentioned earlier, is that the utmost peace that one could ever have in life. It feels like she it always felt like she had a connection with God that I could have never maintained, and I always dreamed of, you know. And that was the feeling it just reminded. As soon as he said that to me, I was just like, and that's when I thought I was crying before, dude. Like I let it all go. It felt like my shoulders dropped. I felt and I was crying, but in a way, it felt like peace, man. That's what it was. It felt like it was just a release, like he just lifted a weight off of me. You feel me?
God sent them
And
to you. Because God don't forget about us. We forget about him.
right, 100%, man, 100%. And of course I took it. I was like, yes. Yeah. I was like, yes, please. And he prayed for me, and the way he prayed, man, was I do believe that certain people have a gift of prayer where when they pray, it seriously sounds as if like you can envision it as if it was a battle, and there's like a soldier of God that's literally just tearing everything up. You know what I mean? Like really fighting with passion, the love for their God, this and that. It really felt like that. Like he was really attacking all these different key points. He didn't even know me, but he was bringing up so many things that I was actually dealing with, that I was actually struggling with. And so he gets done praying, and then he looks at me, and then he asked me, he's like, "What's wrong?" Right? And because I already entered this state of vulnerability, I unloaded everything. And I just told him I'm dealing with this. I'm almost gonna flunk out of school. I'm doing this with the track. I'm not gonna be able to run. My family's they weren't gonna disown me, but they were definitely going to be disappointed in me. And he goes, and then I remember this was the key thing, because I remember I said something, and it was funny. You ever say something, and this is, I'm sure, not everyone has done it, but I do believe that it's happened before. But have you ever said something looking for somebody to kind of cheer you up? Like you say something and you're looking for them to be like, no, man, don't say that.
It's gonna be all
You know
right.
what I mean? And what it was I had said I shouldn't even have went to college. I should have just joined the military, right? And then he looks at me and he's like, maybe you should have. And I was like, and then like that made me raise an eye, because at first I was down into it, and I said it like that. I was like, man, I shouldn't even went to college. I should have just joined the military. And then he said that when he said that, he's like, yeah, maybe you should have. I looked up at him. I was like, I don't think you're very good at this. Like, you were good up until you said
Like,
that, right?
wrong line. That's not your line.
Right. But he's like, maybe you should have, but you're right where you're supposed to be. And so it stuck with me. Always it stuck with me of him saying that, because it was funny, but then also because it was like, I'm not going to find the answer for myself in no other human, no other person here. And he was willing to straight up be like, maybe you should have. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, but somebody knows where you should be, and someone knows where you are. You know what I mean? And this is all part of your individual journey. So, yeah, man, that was ever since that day, everything changed. So,
Sounds like
that's
you
my
had a life
testimony, man.
altering moment.
Yeah, man.
And I was gonna ask you, how has your religion changed your life? But I think you just said it, bro.
Yeah.
All in one breath. But
Yeah.
that's how it is. Because even when I look back to my walk in spirituality, God was there for everything he could be.
Mm,
For every part of it he could be beside me with, he was there.
yeah.
And that's why I personally think that's why I didn't experience a lot of the demonic experiences that people have. Um, because I always, it was kind of like I always just stop right before. I would always stop right before. I'd lose interest right before I get that far. And I don't believe in coincidence. So I think it was meant for me to go see those things, go experience those things, but to not be consumed by them, so that I could live to tell these stories. Because these are not these are not some, oh, I read this, I read that, so I'm gonna say, like, no. This was, oh, I have friends. I have, for example, I remember multiple times using tarot cards. For those of y'all who know what those are. Was it right? Looking back, I don't think it was, but I still think that it was meant for me to experience. I think the guy was with me through it all, because sometimes the tarot cards can get kind of dark for people, and it can mess with their mental. And once you start messing with the mental, it can be downhill quick. So I think that even now, every step of the way, I think God is there every step, whether I want him to be or not,
Yeah.
right? Whether I want him to see this part or not, right? Because I'm still not perfect, but every time I look around, he had to be there. He had to, because I know too many people who were walking with me in my spiritual journey, and they were helping me grow in my spiritual journey, and then they have this experience that they can't explain, right? And it's just, I understood certain things don't go well together. They don't even feel well together. Like how I was talking about that feeling you get in church. It gets to a point in spirituality where you're not just reading about it. It gets to, you start feeling different every time you do certain stuff. And so you have to ask yourself, is this what you want? And if so, why do you want it?
Yeah.
And I think when you get into why do you want it, that's when you start asking the important questions, like, why am I doing this? And not to say that spirituality is completely wrong, because I personally, the the whole reason mine started was due to astrology, so all the zodiac signs and stuff.
Yeah.
Spirituality gets a lot more in depth with that, but then
Yeah.
from there I broke off kind of into like numerology and other stuff, whatever. But
Mm.
it's like that's where it starts, because, and the reason I started there is because in the Bible I remember reading, uh God said he put lights in the firmaments, and this shall be for signs and for seasons. And so I was like, well, wouldn't that be the stars in the sky, for signs and for seasons? And so we understand seasons. We know winter, spring, fall, summer, right? We know all four seasons, but what were the signs he were talking about? Because in English class, you're taught the word "and" is a conjunction word. It brings two things together. So it's not signs or seasons, it's signs and seasons. So we understand the seasons. What are the signs? What are we supposed to be getting out of this? So I do think that astrology is important, but I think that it's not meant to be end all be all. I think that it's a component, kind of like how meditation is a component. It's it's not an end all be all. Um, but that's
Yeah.
just me, my walk so far. Your
Yeah.
walk, very interesting as well. Like
Yeah.
the fact that you were crying and people wouldn't leave you alone. You know,
Yeah.
like today we see somebody crying, we're like, oh, you finish? Like you
Yeah. Let me steer clear. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Especially if you're a stranger. If you're a stranger, you know and this is, at the time I didn't understand it, but I understand it plain as day now. Um, I believe God was trying to reach me before the man came and prayed for me, because the first person who walked up to me, they were trying to get, they were trying to help. You know what I
correct.
mean? They were trying to help, and I ran away. Right? I ran away from something that probably could have done the same exact thing um that man did, right? Um, but I ran away. So that whole thing was like a vivid expression, a vivid depiction of God continuously seeking me. You know what I mean? Like I'm seeking him, but it was proof because that was always what it was for me, my struggle. Because I prayed. I did pray when I was dealing with everything I was dealing with, and I was failing this and I was failing that. But my question was always like, why? Like, why can't I do this? Why? Where are you? You know what I mean? Like, where are you? Why am I not, passing this class? You know that I want to run. Why won't you help me with this? Why aren't you helping me in this area? So that was my question of where are you? And then it was almost as if his answer was in a response that same question back to me. Like I'm asking him, where are you? And he's like, where are you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I'm in
And
here
then
where
he was
you at.
like,
Yeah.
right. And then that day was, oh, I see you. And then it was like, here. He's like, here, grab my hand. And I was like, nah, let me get up out of here. And I left. I was like, let me get up out of here and go over here. Maybe he won't see me. Then he's like, nah, I still see you. Right? Like you moved maybe like 100 yards in the opposite direction, but you're still here. So I see you. Then he sent someone else, right? And that person did exactly what I needed. He did what is the catalyst of the rest of my life, the way I live the rest of my life. Like I said, I've always been God fearing, but that was like at the the tippity top of my depression. He revealed himself to me. You know what I mean? And yeah, man, how it changed my life was just, well, you talked about it earlier that there's certain things that you would do that didn't feel the same now that you were kind of walking on this path towards God, right?
Hmm.
Well, that feeling is called conviction. That feeling is conviction. Conviction is like the awareness of sin, awareness of what is not the truth, right? And I've had that's exactly what I had. After that, I felt convicted in so many different things that I was doing. Things that became a regular that I knew obviously because I was God fearing. I knew what wasn't of God, but I had done it. I've ignored the conviction for so long, and I started getting into a pattern of constantly sinning that it started not to feel like a sin anymore. You know what I mean? I didn't feel anything from it because it was kind of like, oh, I mean, I did it yesterday and I'm fine, so let me do it again and do it again and do it again. Right. So I became on this pattern and then it felt like it was a refreshment. It was like, nope, as if I did almost, it made me feel as if it started fresh, as in I am fresh. I haven't sinned yet, but also I don't even know what sin is until I do it. And so then it felt like, all right, almost like I started, that's what it was, man. It felt like I started a new life because I started doing certain things. It wasn't like I immediately acted differently because I did. I went back home and it was another day. There was parties that I was, that we already knew of, that I already knew I was going to go to and go hang out with my friends and do certain things, certain activities that you shouldn't be doing, right? And it started feeling weird again. It started feeling like, man, I know I shouldn't be here. You know what I mean? I know I shouldn't be here. And now I had more power, more strength when it came to resisting the temptation of, oh, let me do this fling, let me do this fun so that I can, just feel it. So I can feel that instant gratification that I'm looking for. It finally became where I was going out and the whole time I felt like I was going to get in trouble the whole time. Like I would be out and I'd kind of be like, everyone else is having a great time. And I used to be with them. I used to be freaking dancing and, having a good time. I always loved to dance. I don't need to be under the influence to dance. I love to dance. But I would be there and I didn't even want to dance. I was like, there's people here that are doing some things they should not be doing. I should not be here. And so I finally got the strength to be able to leave, even when people would stop me. Like, hey, where are you going? I'm like, nah, man, I'm good. I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna go chill at the crib. And sometimes I'll be like, you want to come? You know what I mean? Try not to make it feel so like I'm leaving you here. You know what I mean? Like,
Correct.
I try to be like, no, like, let's go kick it at the crib. They're like, no, I'm gonna stay here. All right, cool. So I'm gonna go to the dorm and I'm gonna play the video game, or I'm gonna go to the dorm and be safe, talk to people, hang out with different people who I know are not trying to do things that they shouldn't be doing. But I finally had that strength again, and I finally had that conviction of knowing, man, I need to stop because the way that I'm going in now is not towards who literally just saved me, who literally just told me that he sees me and that this is all part of the plan. He confirmed that this is part of the plan. Because that was all I was worried about. I felt like, dude, this must be unscripted because, and I don't like that because this must be unscripted. But he was like, no, this is part of it. Keep going. You know what I
Correct.
mean? So yeah, man. I know that was long and everything, but that's what it was, and that's how it's changed my life. And ever since then, I failed. I have still sinned. It wasn't like I just became this, godlike person because that's not possible. I can become as holy as I can, but I'm still going to fall. I'm still going to slip up, right? But now that I made that agreement, and even shortly after that, I did get baptized. Um, for the wrong reasons at that time, technically. But the point is that I made the choice to choose God in everything that I did. So ever since then, I did end up passing my my courses. I was able to run. My GPA started increasing. My health started to increase. My mental health started to increase. When I by increase I mean started to get healthier. I was happier as a person. I made new friends who were still just as motivated, but still, obviously we'd have fun, but it was still in a safer environment, not in an environment that could potentially hurt us. You know what I mean? I graduated school. At the time, I never thought I was going to find the love of my life. I found the love of my life, and that's how everything changed. It literally, everything in my life just improved. And everything I ever wanted, I received and more. And it's still happening. So that's why I believe what I believe.
Any regrets?
That I didn't have that moment sooner. That I didn't have it sooner. And that's not even really regret because again, now that I see it, I see that everything happened for a reason. Everything happened exactly when it was supposed to happen. And I don't have any regrets. Just I have good takeaways to take from it. But yeah, man. What about you? Do you have any regrets?
That I didn't start sooner. That
Yeah.
I didn't start the whole leaving to come back sooner. I think
Yeah.
my personal growth, my personal development would have skyrocketed had I ran to spirituality. Like thinking about it, I probably wouldn't have been as successful in high school. Um, but if I start my spiritual journey in ninth grade, by the time I hit college, I'm back to the Bible. And so now I got 4 years of Bible college population. So I'm going to be networking, connecting with people, getting to know people.
Yeah.
It would have been so much better. But like you said, everything I do understand everything does happen for a reason. I was supposed to meet the people I met. I was supposed to engage in the things I engaged in. And each thing I engaged in just gave me a real life lesson. It was a you're not going to read about this one. This one you're going to live. And it's a
Yeah.
lesson to carry on the way I see it to the next person so that they see that this is not abnormal. You're not the first person to go to college and not finish. You're not the first person to um dress half naked. You're not the first person to whatever. It's been done before. The earth continues to spin. You have to come to the realization of why you're doing what you're doing. So, for example, if you have whatever you deem to be success only for the reason that you want other people to validate you, Why? Why do you need external validation? So with our topic, if you're going to church so that people can say you went to church every Sunday, why?
Yeah.
If you didn't get anything out of it, what was the point? You just wait.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't mean to offend nobody who may be viewing, but some of those church sermons, you could have saved yourself a lot of time if you just were to not attend if you wasn't gonna learn nothing.
Yeah.
You know.
I get what you're saying.
So
Yeah.
it is what it is. You did what you
Yeah.
did. What did you learn from it? Whatever you learned, go tell somebody who's younger than you so that the next generation comes up better than you.
Yeah.
Because that's what's gonna take care of you when you old. Those are gonna be your future doctors and lawyers and whatever, whatever. So the more experience, more wisdom they have, the better chance you have in the future.
It's a very good point, man. Very good point. You had mentioned also though that church, like you could have saved certain time or whatsoever when it comes to church, different church sermons. I'm not saying that some. I mean, obviously some sermons they go pretty long. All right, they go pretty long, and they may not be. I think that's what it is. A lot of people go to church expecting every word to be for them, but that word that they went that day possibly wasn't for them. And because it wasn't for them, I feel though you can find something. If you're really seeking, you're gonna find something that, but you're gonna be like, that's not really my situation. Because it's not your situation, you're kind of like, all right, like, but you know what I mean? Like, all right, like
Like
get to the part that it's about me or let us go. You know what I mean? But what I started, and so that's what it was. And I know I mentioned that I didn't go to church growing up consistently, but I go to church consistently now. What I started having my mindset also changed when it became to church services. It was of I'm you're an athlete, so I'm sure that you can relate with this. But there were some times where coaches would be like, "All right, I know that it's Saturday, but we're gonna have optional practice," and they would always say optional,
hmm
right? That's supposed to emphasize it's an option. You have a choice. You don't have to go, but we're gonna be here. I'm gonna be here, the coach, right? And if you're an athlete, especially if you were a good athlete, you knew uh optional is not really optional. There's not a choice, right? Is not a choice at all. It's kind of it's almost like an indicator to see who really wants it, right? That's what I started treating church service as. I started treating church as this is optional practice. So yeah, I don't. No one's making me go. I don't have to go. But if I don't go, I should be. I cannot complain about the consequences that came with not going. And
Fair.
sometimes that could have meant, all right, for those of us who didn't go to practice on Saturday, guess what your practice is going to be on Monday. You know, like your workout's going to be slightly different, just a little bit. You know what I mean?
Couple
And
more reps.
yeah, a couple more reps, a couple more runs around the track. You know what I mean? Less time, possibly. Like, you know what I mean? So,
Correct.
um, that's what I started treating church as. It was like, okay, well, if I ever start feeling for some odd reason that I'm like a certain distance away from, and this is obviously, again, this is my faith, but if I start ever feeling like, oh, again, like, God, where are you in this situation? I can't, it seems harder to see you and things start kind of going south. Well, I'm like, okay, well, am I getting further away? When was the last time I went to church? You know what I mean? I don't believe that the only place to find God and to see God is in the church, though. I do believe that, there's other people who do different ways where they go to church on like a Saturday or like a Friday or Wednesday, or that they don't go to church, but they continuously practice, right? I do think that church is a solid foundation. I do believe it's imperative, especially in the Christian faith, though. So, yeah, man, that's how specifically it changed my mindset on the whole thing. I just what is very hard is to stick out from what I believe. I do believe a lot of people move as Christians and they're not. Their actions are not speaking.
They're not aligned.
They're not aligned. So, and I think because of them, unfortunately, they're pushing away people who need the church the most, who need the faith the most because of they're not portraying what God intended them to portray. So then people who say we're trying to get in, who were trying to basically hop on the boat, right? And like hop on the bandwagon of, oh, this is what it is. I want to believe. But then the person who met me at the door kicked me out, pushed me away. So now they're looking at church or looking at Christianity in a way of like, well, man, they're like this. They don't even want me. They think that I'm this, this, and this. Why would I want to be a part of that? Well, that's because the person you met at the door, he wasn't running it and he was having an off day. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like he probably shouldn't have been there anyway. He probably needs to be let go. You know what I mean? Or, he needs to do some retraining, right? So
Disciplinary actions.
yeah, now that we're in the workforce now, we know how to talk professional. Like maybe we need some retraining, okay? Like, but but yeah, man. So
I
you
just
brought up
say
some.
to anybody out there, don't be ashamed of your path. Your path is your path that happens in your time as long as you are seeking God. Never stop believing. To those who don't believe in God, I'm gonna be honest with you. I do. I don't
Yeah,
I don't understand not believing. So I
yeah,
can't attest to that. But I can say for those of you who do believe in a God, keep looking, keep searching. Look for whatever the truth is, even if it hurt. Is the truth may hurt. It may feel like a punch in the face sometimes, but the truth after you finish crying and picking up the pieces, it makes you better. After you pick up the pieces, you have to rebuild. So once you rebuild, you don't build the same model. You build 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. And so by continuing to learn the truth, you continue to break through to new molds and you continue to get better and better and better. But you start to understand that it's a process and it takes the entire process to be better. And that's why you get better piece by piece. And that has been another episode of Beyond the Pieces. You can catch us here every Thursday. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your way out. Turn on your notifications so you know exactly when we go live on Instagram, on YouTube, every time we drop a video or short. Stop missing stuff, guys. See you next week.